Namaskaram. Welcome to the second day of Nrityadarshana Nrityakalya Dance Company's 10th anniversary celebrations. Today we present to you ViBhavana, Understanding and Developing a Composition by Smt Vidhya Subramanian. Vidhya Subramanian is an eminent Bharatanatyam artist acclaimed for her sensitive choreography and emotionally charged performances. Trained under Gurus S.K. Rajaratnam and Kalanidhi Narayanan, her artistry has earned appreciation in India, Germany, France, UK, Russia, Afghanistan, Kenya and USA. In her charismatic creativity, one witnesses a strong belief in the validity of choreographic structure combined with openness to new influences. An intelligent, articulate and moving performer, she employs her outstanding interpretive and dramatic skills to make the emotions palpably present on stage. A sought-after artist to perform and teach, her dance, witnessed in prestigious centers such as World Music Institute, New York, the Sabhas of Chennai, Musée Guimet, Paris, is often described as offering of mind, body and soul. The Hindu describes her work thus: Vidhya Subramanian combined Shringara, Bhakti and philosophy, impressing Rasikas with her compelling technique of expression. The dancer depicted an individual's appeal to a higher power, whether in love or spirituality with sophistication. The Dance View Times of New York says, her movements were suffused with sensuous longing, both earthly and eternal. I could have watched her for hours. With an MA in theatre arts, she has enriched her artistic experience with forays into theatre and film as well. Without further ado, let's enjoy ViBhavana, Understanding and Developing a Composition. Namaskaram. Right at the outset, I would like to congratulate Janani Narayanan and Nrityakalya Dance Company upon the completion of 10 years. What a momentous event. When Janani moved to the Bay Area, she started learning from me after having trained with the Kirans in Bangalore for many years. And over the years, a very hardworking student, after a number of years of training, she came to me one day and asked if she could start teaching. You know, not all dancers have to teach or can teach, but I was able to wholeheartedly agree with that decision of hers because I felt Janani would be one of the most hardworking and conscientious teachers I've seen. And here we are 10 years later with proof. And I've seen some of her programs, performances, students' performances as well, all very hardworking. So congratulations, Janani, and best wishes for many, many more years to come. So when Janani asked me to give a talk or lecture demonstration for this celebration of hers, I decided to talk about the understanding and developing of a composition for Bharatanatyam. That is the way I would approach it. Of course, every choreographer, every teacher has their own approach to teaching and to dancing any composition, but this is my approach. In education, especially in education in the arts, there are these three steps, one could call them. Manana, which is practice, repeated practice. The idea of repetition, learning by rote in class from the teacher. During this process, it doesn't mean that you don't ask questions. Questions will occur. But I would encourage students to hold off from asking too many questions because often you'll see that over years of practice and repetition, the answers to those questions will reveal themselves. So patience is required. Chinta, thought. So as you grow in the practice or learning of the art form, how much thought you put into it, how much back work you do outside of the class, all of this. Jnana, where as you grow in the arts, as you grow with many, many years of experience, you find a deeper connection, a deeper relationship with the dance form. Now, how do we, today I decided I would sort of divide the talk into two segments, the understanding and the developing. We, of course, we have the Margam in the traditional Bharatanatyam repertoire. And the Margam consists of compositions that have been traditionally composed for dance, such as the Tanjavur Quartet Varnams, Padams, Javalis, Tilanas, and the same compositions by other poets or composers as well. Now, we also have compositions that are not necessarily written for dance, but they can be adapted for dance. So, when we look at understanding, the first step would be choice, right? Choosing a composition, what to choose, what to dance to, because there are literally thousands of compositions to choose from, right? So when you're choosing, a teacher is going to look at the student's age, the student's aptitude, his or her understanding level when they are choosing the composition to teach. And this would be the same if a choreographer is choosing for themselves. Then, if it is a non-traditional composition, you would look at all of those, the age, the aptitude, and all of those as well. But beyond that, you're going to also look at the lyrical quality, the words, the meaning, what they communicate, and the music, how well it allows itself to be danced to. Then, next level, if I, as a choreographer, am choosing something that I want to dance, not just teaching the student, I would look at all of the above, what I've just mentioned, but above that, I would also look at how I identify with the composition, how it moves me. Does it make me want to get up and dance? And do the lyrics, the words, the character, the Naika, all of those, the protagonist, do I identify with all of these aspects is what I look at when I choose a composition. Now, next step. Let's say the composition is chosen. We have to develop an understanding of it, right? So when let's say you're going to school and you're meeting a new friend. When you meet a new friend, you're going to first find out a few basic things about them, right? Like, what is your name? Which city? Where do you live? Maybe whatever questions you ask to introduce yourselves to each other. The same way, when you look at a composition, the first thing you need to know is ragam, talam, composer. Very basic information. When you go beyond this now, you need to look at the meaning, the lyrics and the meaning. When I teach my students, I give them the words of the song and the composition and the meaning for each line. Now, when we say meaning, we're not looking just at, okay, this word means this, or, word-to-word meaning. That is basic, word-to-word meaning. But then, sentence-to-sentence meaning. What does that entire arc of the sentence mean? Then, what is the inner, idea behind that sentence? What does the entire stanza convey? What does the entire composition communicate? What was the intention of the composer when he or she wrote this particular piece of poetry or a composition? These are all things the teacher will help you understand. But if you are working on it on your own, you must also go as deep as you can into the understanding of the meaning of the composition you're going to learn or are learning. When you, now, we've talked about the meaning. I said word to word, all of that, right? The other aspect of this is language. So you are comfortable mostly maybe with English, maybe with one more language, but whatever the language of the composition, especially if it is a language that you don't know or are not familiar with, it's extremely important that you understand, and not only understand but memorize. So if you look at it on paper and understand it, that's one thing. But then if you're going to dance it, you're not going to have that piece of paper in front of you. So you need to know the words, you need to memorize the words. You cannot be thinking what is the next hand or what is the next expression. You're thinking of what the next word and what the next narrative is. And in order to know that narrative, you need to internalize and memorize the words and the meaning primarily. Now, for today's demonstration part, I have chosen to take one composition which is one of my favorites. It is the Sambhunatanam. Now, in the Sambhunatanam, to illustrate what I've just talked about, I'll give you the words and the meaning for the first two stanzas, let's say. So it goes like this: Sadanchitam Udanchitam Sadanchitam Udanchita Nikunchita Padam Jhala Jhalam Chalita Manju Katakam. Okay, so it is in Kandachapu. I know that. And the stanzas are divided into 4 lines each. Sadanchitam, always auspicious. Udanchitam, rising. So the good souls are always rising when they are engaged in the auspicious form of Shiva. Nikunchita Padam, the foot that is pointed and lifted and giving release to the souls that pray to it. Nikunchita Padam. Jhala Jhalam Chalita Manju Katakam. Jhala Jhalam. So the bracelets on his hands make the sound Jhala 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 Jhala. So beautiful. Okay, this is the basic word-to-word meaning. Now, if I'm going to go a little deeper, we need to look at the mythology, right? So word-to-word you've understood, but if you don't know the myths and the stories and the underlying essence of why, what is that Nikunchita Padam? So in order to know that idea of Nikunchita Padam, the Kunchita Padam, the raised foot, I need to know the entire meaning of the iconography of Shiva. It is that crucial. So what does that fire represent? What do the matted locks represent? What is that Abhaya Hasta? What is this Hasta? It is pointing towards the release of the soul. The foot that is giving release to the soul, and the right foot is stamped on the Muyalaka. The demon who signifies everything negative within each of us. There is immense significance to that iconography of Nataraja. And now when I know that, I can approach this composition, whether I'm learning it or choreographing it, with so much more authenticity. Okay, so mythology is extremely important to know. And mythology not just to learn for the composition you're learning. That is very important, yes. If you're learning the composition, what are the myths behind that? But beyond that, on a regular basis, it's very, very important to learn and understand mythology, because you don't know where or when the connections will happen. Not something you can predict. And when there are these connections made, and if you are not able to understand them, that's your loss. So it's every dot connects somewhere. That's the point, right? With mythology. So I would like to, the other story I wanted to share as far as, well, perhaps I'll demonstrate first and then I will tell you. So he'll help make the connection.
Janana Panchana Karam Patanjali Vikanjana Manjana Machanchala Padam Janana Panchana Karam Kadambaruchimam Padavasam Paramamam Putakadambakabidambakagaram Kadambaruchimam Padavasam Paramamam Putakadambakabidambakagaram Chidam Buddhimanim Buddhakridam Bujaravim Parachidam Varanadam Hribhaja Chidam Buddhimanim Buddhakridam Bujaravim Parachidam Varanadam Hribhaja Tripura Bhanjana Mahanta Kritakangana Mahanta Dayamantarahitam Vivinchi Sura Sampati Purandara Vichintita Padam Taruna Chandrama Pudam Varam Pada Vigantita Yamam Bhasita Mantita Tanum Atana Vanchana Padam Chirantanamam Pranada Sanchitanithim Parachitam Varanadam Hribhaja Chirantanamam Pranada Sanchitanithim Parachitam Varanadam Hribhaja.
So in that composition, there's a beautiful story attached to the composer as to why he composed this particular poem. So Patanjali is the name of the composer, and he is the serpent sage. What happened was Nandi, who is the bull, and other sages were sort of teasing Patanjali, saying that he is not capable of worshipping Shiva with all of his senses, because a serpent doesn't have feet or ears or kombu, that is the horns. So Nandi said, I have horns, I have feet, I have all the senses around me that I can feel and enjoy the energy of Shiva with, which you cannot. So Patanjali said, I will challenge you. And so he composed this, he is said to have, this is mythology again, said to have composed this poem without the kombu or the kal. Now what does that mean? The kombu is the horn, the kal are feet in Tamil. But also in Tamil, the kombu is the long sound for any consonant. So if we take ka and we put a kombu, it becomes ki. And same with kal. If you take ka and put a long sound after it, it becomes ka. So he said without the kombu or the kal. So every syllable in this poem is short. Nothing is long. So sadanchita nutanchita nikunchita padam jhala jhalam chalita manju katakam. Right? And Patanjali Driganjana Mananjana Machanchala Padam Janana Bhanjana Karam. All short, short, short. Now, Patanjali Driganjanam, those words also, the serpent, the Anjanam, the kajal that is within his eyes is said to be Shiva. Why? By being applied within the eye, he removes the darkness that exists within Patanjali. Such beautiful imagery you get from this. So now if you go back and look at the choreography, one of the reasons I told you that story is that when I was thinking about this piece, how to put movement to it, it was very important to me that the movements be short, in keeping with that single syllable composition. So everything, there is a sense of crispness and quickness to the movements. Everything has that quality to it. But beyond that, this is also a meditative composition. Patanjali was in meditation, complete dhyanam, when he wrote this in terms of Shiva, for Shiva. So for me, at the end of each stanza, the last line, while there is this frenzy of movement and that, the Shiva, the imagery of Shiva is present in the composition, the last line in each stanza, I needed to find stillness and that meditative quality. So in life, we have movement and we have stillness. And it's very important to be still in order to feel the beauty of the movement as well, the moments of movement. Similarly, here in this composition, there is that gorgeous juxtaposition of the two. Now, I hope it's clear why we need to know mythology, why we need to know the inner meaning, and why we need to know all this, what I've been saying all this time, right? Beyond this, now if we go to, this is one small example for a composition, but beyond this, let's say we take varnams, we take padams, knowing of the word-to-word meaning, knowing the inner meaning gets taken to a whole nother level. It's not just about mythology or the narrative or the stories behind, but there is philosophy attached to it. There is the Advaita, what are you looking at? That otherness, in a Varnam, for example, what is that Nayika yearning for? All of those become a much deeper study when you're looking at learning a Varnam. So I want to talk about allied forms that are very crucial to understanding compositions. We are still in understanding. One of them is music, right? So you know the words, the lyrics, the meaning. But what is that music doing to you? So you have each composition in either one ragam or multiple ragams, and also the same with talam. Now, when you are a student who has studied music as well, the understanding you develop for the dance composition is much deeper. So I would encourage all students of dance to definitely learn music, Carnatic music. Carnatic music, because that's what we mostly use in Bharatanatyam. Because that relationship between the music and the dance, these poets have envisioned a certain scenario, a certain narrative when they wrote these poems, and the choreographer looks at it a certain way. Now, in order for you to understand that thought process, if you understand the music, it's bliss. So definitely learn music. But beyond learning music, I would say attend music concerts as well. Attend dance performances, both, not just dance. Dancers shouldn't only go to dance or musicians only go to music. I think both have to attend both. You see the connections made then in music or in dance. So when you watch dancers, when you watch senior dancers, you may learn from very small things such as how they pick flowers, how they decorate them, wear the jewelry they wear, how they're wearing the jewelry, how they're combing their hair. I have grown up watching so many stalwarts. Sanjukta Panigrahi, for example, was one of my idols. She is an Odissi dancer, but what I learned from her, to this day I can, in my mind's eye, see how she would put on her earrings. And it's not to say that you're copying them. When you watch a performer that you idolize or you like, it's not about copying. It's about being inspired by something in that moment that touches you so deeply that you find a way to reproduce it within your own body. And like I said, within or with the outside of Bharatanatyam, there are so many stalwarts and dancers. Now in this generation, everything is available online too, so you can watch. We all have to go to the concert. Of course, that's, I feel to this, even now that is much better than watching it online. So watch and listen, very important. Reading is another one. So reading not just mythology, reading not just for the sake of understanding that one composition you're learning, but reading beyond that, reading about current events, reading about history, reading about philosophy, reading articles on dance. There's so much to read. Fiction, non-fiction, even movies, films that you can find inspiring moments that you can take away from. All all these mediums are important to become engaged in as a way of holistically learning the dance form, not just looking at it narrowly in terms of that one composition or 10 compositions. And here I also want to say it's not about volume, it's not about how many compositions you learn, but it is about how well you learn each composition. So you can take that one composition and make it, so beautiful. Own it. This Sadhaana, what I did, I've performed it many, many, many times. But each time I do it, I discover something new in it. And that will happen only if you're able to learn just a few and learn them really well with depth. Really, right? So now we go to observation. What does that mean? You're in a space, not in a bubble in this world. We're not in any bubble. We live in society. We live in this abundance of nature that is so generous in what it is offering to us on a daily basis. Other human beings, there's so much to observe. I would, look at your friend, the way she talks, the way she walks, or the color of the sky, how it's changed. Now we have fires in California because of that. The sky is completely changing. What are those colors, not just naming the color, but what does the sky look like? How do you hear that bird, the noise that it makes when it's chirping away on the tree? How does that leaf fall? We are now approaching fall in the area, in the US. How does that leaf fall from the tree? There is a quality to it. There is a lightness and it defies gravity almost. Watch that leaf falling. How does it fall? There is so much one can observe from around us. And these observations find a way into the way you would perform a piece. 10 students may learn the same composition, but how each individual performs it or practices it is based on all of these surrounding paraphernalia that you engage yourself in. It's not about just learning that one composition in class. So to me, the idea of understanding is all of what I've just listed. Now we'll move on to developing the composition. Okay? So here I just want to talk about this word choreography. Choreography as a word is a Western word. Now, in the Western notion, it connotes this idea of arranging a piece, arranging a composition, or arranging movements. While this is a subset of how we put together compositions in Indian forms, there's a lot more to it. So the word choreography doesn't quite completely do justice to that, because we have, of course, arranging movement, arranging a composition, but beyond that, we're looking at the narrative. Is the hand gesture telling the story along with the expression? Is the hand gesture helping the face, or is the face helping the hand gesture? Is all of this coming together, or are they separate entities? Right? So there is Nritya, there's so many components. So while the word choreography to me doesn't quite do justice, unfortunately we don't have another equivalent, so we use that for now. But I prefer to use composing a dance piece, right? So here, when we look at composing, or even while you're learning, the ideating is the first step for any dancer. So we have done all this understanding, right, so far. Now we have to find ideas if you are choreographing it. So ideas are actually just an organic, natural process of understanding. If you've done all that homework, if you've taken all those steps to understand not just the composition, but the entire form, or entire, what the universe is made of, then ideas become an organic result of this process. I know that sounds simple, but it's a lifetime's worth of work, right? Now, which is why I don't think choreography should be embarked upon that easily. Just after learning for a few years, it's not a good idea to start choreographing. When you've equipped yourself with all of this, and when you feel like you cannot help but ideate or move to a composition, that's when the expression comes out of you in its most authentic manner. Now, when you're ideating, if, like I said, you've laid this foundation, you don't have to force the idea. Because if you do, it becomes inauthentic, it becomes untruthful. But when you let it, allow it, when you open yourself with all the foundation laid, they come to you. So don't get frustrated or don't get worried if ideas don't just drop from the heavens. They do actually eventually, but it's not really from the heavens. It's just that you have become this vehicle that has allowed yourself to receive. Simple. Now, and also there is no such thing as just one idea. There are multiple ideas. You can take one line in a varnam, mohamana yen meedil nee inda velayil, right? So you can take that mohamana, what does it mean? This, I'm intoxicated with my love for you. Me at this time, me in the velayil, at this time, you are being indifferent to me, will be the next line. But just that one line, mohamana, right? It can be done with so many ideas, so many ideas. So allow those ideas to happen and don't feel like the perfect idea is the only one to explore. There are multiple beautiful ideas. And when these ideas occur to you, my suggestion would be write them down. Write down ideas, jot down thoughts. Keep a journal with you, even when you're outside. Sometimes it just, ideas strike you. Often ideas strike me when I least expect it. They're not on a timetable. So if I'm sitting in the studio and working on it for an hour or 2 hours, that doesn't mean they're going to happen at that time. They're on their own timetable. Sometimes they'll happen when I'm, driving somewhere or whatever, right? So obviously don't start writing when you're driving, but find a way to record those thoughts and ideas is what I mean. Because they will transition themselves into choreography or the composition of the piece at some point. And in order to do that, your mind cannot be overcrowded with gadgets and technology and all that. And you have to find the stillness and moments of doing nothing. Moments of boredom are the most important trigger for ideation to happen. Now, once, let's say, we've ideated, transitioning ideas into movement. This is crucial, if not more important than the ideation process. Ideas, we all can have brilliant ideas. Whether you're a dancer or not dancer, ideas can happen. But what you do with those ideas, how you transition them to movement, to choreography, to what you're doing with your expression, your emotion, the arc of that piece, how are you developing it, is something that you need to put a lot of thought into. Because that is what is communicating it ultimately to whom you're performing it for, dancing it for. And this is a performance art. Right? We do enjoy dancing in our studios, but we also perform it. So communication is a crucial part of our art forms. So if we are not convinced with how we have transitioned those ideas into movement, the audience is not going to be convinced either. So, transitioning of idea into movement, what does that mean? If you take, you have an idea, it looks beautiful on paper, it just reads brilliantly, then what do you do with it? When you get up and start moving, you're stuck. How does it, what is that transition? To me, what I do is, I just sort of, sometimes with putting on music, if you have music existing already for that piece, put on music. Otherwise, without even music, just move. Just find movement. And if you've internalized the ideas, if you've internalized, again, all that process that I was talking about, The movement finds an organic way of expressing your ideas. But obviously it is a trial and error process. You keep trying movements, you keep discarding them, or you keep them. It depends on what you feel works best for that particular moment in the music or the composition. And if your music is not available, and if it's a new composition, then the way I work is I set the dance composition first. And then I work with the composer to ideate through the music just the way I have envisioned that composition. That's also crucial. So that symbiotic relationship, remember I talked about music and dance. It's sort of like the river and its bank. You'll never see the river and the bank separated, right? They may meander all over the place, but they meander together. There is a interlinking happening between the river and its bank. Same with music and dance. So it's crucial that you work that way. Now, when you are transitioning to movement, the other thing you do is also you alternate between, again, moving, writing down, moving, writing down. So journaling is very important for me. So this process then makes it, it solidifies the whole composition. And when you're doing it, it's also important to not just look at those tiny, 2-minute segments of movement. You're not just focusing on the 2 minutes or 1 minute here or 1 minute there. You have to keep the entire arc of the composition in mind when you are setting movement to ideas. So each is not suspended on its own. Okay. Now, let's say you have set movement for the entire composition, and it's all in place, beginning to end, and you're happy with it. The big sections are well set. The big sections are, you've properly understood, you've embodied them, you have found them in your muscle memory. Next, I would stress very much on how you look at the transitions. Transitions between words, transitions between lines, transitions between sentences, between paragraphs, and the entire composition. So everything is an arc. So there is, from beginning to end, that arc. So these transitions, when I say transitions, it is the connection. So for example, let's say you're reading a story, you're reading a novel or a short story. If one word does not connect to the next word, the sentence won't make sense. If one sentence does not connect to the next sentence, not going to make sense. So it is like building these Lego blocks, right? So you build it, and then you've got this short story or this novel at the end of it, all of which finds a thread. There is a thread running through all of it. This is the same with when you're approaching one particular composition, beginning to end. The threads, the little connections are super important. Where, within words. When I say words, it's not just about, it's about the gestures and the expressions. From one expression to another, if you're looking from here to there, is there a connection? Why are you looking from here to there? Which brings me to the next point, which is that, intention. Intention is a very, very important word in developing compositions. What do I mean by intention? Intention is this sense of purpose or knowing why you are doing a certain movement or expression a certain way. Why are you looking here versus here? Why is the hand for Sakhi here versus here? Where was she when you placed her last? Why are you holding Katakamukaha versus Alapadma? It can be even as simple as that. Intention. Knowing the why, not just, and this is even if you're learning a piece, it's not only if you're choreographing a piece. If you're learning a piece, still understand the intention behind each of those moments and movements. Because it will make it so much more true to you, so much more authentic. And that sense of joy you get from truly understanding the composition comes from this word intention, because the how is equally important, right? So the other thing, one small point I want to make here is, why are we harping upon this word intention, is also because one needs to understand that you're not performing in order to please someone else. While you're learning in class, you are there to please your teacher. So listen to your teacher, understand, and what you're doing is important there. But if you're, let's say, you're at a performing level and you perform. When I'm dancing a piece, I'm not doing it in order to please the audience. I'm there to communicate with the audience. But for me, if I am not in a place where I am truly deeply connected with my composition, and for that having the true intention, knowing the true intention behind every movement, every action, why is the dola held like this? Why is that? Just today I was teaching in class this composition, right? So Choreographic, where she is looking at her friend and she places her hand upon her shoulder, but what is that moment when she places it? So Choreographic is an example where she says, look at her, she walks in broad daylight, she's about to go meet her lover. She has no fear, it seems like, she says. So this woman is just doing some chores around the house. She's putting the poem in the morning. And then her friend comes there and she says, let's go gossip about this other woman. But to me, I am more interested in finishing my chores because I have a whole list of chores to do for the day. And then, so getting up and doing that immediately doesn't give the same intention as if I'm doing this and she calls to you and she says, what? And she says, you look at her, you look at this other woman, and then your interest is piqued. Aha. Choreographic, look at her. So that intention of knowing why I'm placing my hand on that shoulder at that particular point of time is what I'm talking about. And this is in every composition. Every moment is important to deal with it this way. I'm going to just demonstrate a very short Abhinaya segment. This is a Javali. And when I demonstrate it, I would urge you to look at the intention, the connections, and all of those things I just talked about. It is Smara Sundaranguli, in which she is very, very proud of her husband. Swadhina Patika she is. So she knows that he is hers and belongs only to her. And she has no fear that he will stray and that he will only listen to her words. So she's the intention here is to know what this Naika, who this Naika is. What would be her mannerisms? What would be her personality? How would she sit? How would she walk? How would she talk? There is a body language associated with the personality, right? So it is not the same way, a Naika would not stand the same way for every composition. It depends solely on the character in that Javali. So in this Javali, she is that. So there is an air of confidence about her. There is an air of complete, I don't care about anyone else, sort of. So we'll just see this composition. So the Jabali you just saw, I hope you witnessed some of those ideas that I put forth ahead of time, right? The connections, the transitions, and the intention. So she is talking to her Sakhis, so she is ostensibly doing something that is her own, and she is actually listening to them when they describe their husbands, but she transitions to saying, all that is fine, but nothing like my husband, right? And then she goes on to talk about, is there anyone equal to him in beauty? His face is like the moon, his eyes are like the lotus, aha. And that sense of, even if 10 people come, he will vanquish them in no time. Because this woman had bragged to you about her husband's strength, right? And then likewise, because this woman bragged about the jewelry her husband got her, she says, you're talking about those tiny earrings? Look at this, look at what he got me. So it is that conversation, the internal dialogue that is constantly going on. And thinking in whatever language you're comfortable with. You cannot be thinking Smara Sundarangini ki sariya vare. You have to know the words and the meaning, like I said right at the beginning. But here, you're thinking of the dialogue. Odi, inna periya. Idu patiya? Look at this. Is there anything like this? His smartness and his knowledge, there is no equal. Sarasakoti Lona, if you look at all of them, he is the best. That dialogue that is going on, internal dialogue, is constantly going on, which is why it is the subtext, right? So, which is why it transitions easily to communication. So, you should be able to look at the dancer and put what they're doing in a sentence as the audience. Now, in the process of development, there's are a couple more things I want to say before I end. Repetition, which is practice. So repetition is not just practice, meaning not just put on the music and dance the whole piece. That's not all there is to repetition. It is this internalization of every moment, right, that I talked about. But also looking at problem areas. What is difficult for you? What is difficult for you may not be difficult for another person, may be easy for some other student in your class. But what is difficult for you, you have to understand. And then working on those difficult areas over and over and over again is what practice is. And then taking that movement and then putting it as part of the whole and then possibly practicing the whole composition. So it's not just about putting on music and doing the piece and saying I finished practicing, right? So repetition is super important. And so I mean, when I look at this, I would compare it to if you're when you're looking at a flower, for example, you don't you should not just look at oh, that's a beautiful flower, right? So that is looking at the whole thing. But you look at its color, you look at you smell it, you look at the way the petals are falling. Is it a lotus? Is it a jasmine? The size is different, right? So every aspect of it you analyze. Similarly, the composition also you have to take it apart and analyze it. That is what repetition in practice is about. And then rinse and repeat, of course, over and over again, so that the memory enters not just your body and your mind, but your entire being is suffused with the memory of that piece. Another important thing to remember is editing. So when you're, let's say, choreographing a piece, you cannot be so close to the composition. This is only for choreographers. You cannot be so close to it that you find difficult to let go of this idea or that line, or because it becomes really large, not just in terms of time, but in terms of communication as well. So you have to learn to be brutal about editing, which could mean adding or cutting or embellishing. It could mean so many things. But editing is an equally important part of developing a piece. And of course, patience, because just like you make friends, you have to be really patient, right? It takes a long time to develop. The same way, having patience and not expecting it to happen tomorrow. If you learned a piece last week, by next week it's not going to happen. Or next month, it's not going to happen. It is going to take its own time. So allow that process to happen, but work really hard and be with that piece. Even if you learn new pieces, go back and patiently work on that whole piece, which is when you get that sense of connection. Because the art is so much bigger than all of us, right? So if you take the journey of the art, it's ongoing. It started, we don't know when, and we don't know if it will never end, that journey. The art is on its own journey. All you are is one passenger in that journey. So you cannot take yourself too seriously as well. So you're just getting on in one station and getting off at another station. That's all. Your time in that journey. So understand that the art requires that respect and that surrender and that sense of largeness that is enveloping you, that is protecting you, that is sort of cocooning you. So you have to work within those parameters, respecting and understanding and loving the art form. And most importantly, enjoy the journey. Work really hard, but enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. Thank you again, Janani, for inviting me to do this lecture demonstration here. And if I think there are a few questions, I would like to answer those questions now.
Thank you so much, Vidyaka. It was a wonderful talk, and I'm sure we dancers across the globe are going to benefit a lot, understanding and developing compositions and understanding what we learn from teachers and gurus. Thank you so much for coming and giving us a wonderful talk.
My pleasure.
We have a few questions, and sometimes our inner personality is seen when we are dancing, whether it is Nritya or Abhinaya. How should we learn to control that?
Why control it is my question at all. The inner personality is something that is individual and quirky to each of us. it doesn't mean you let it flamboyantly be on display, but it is that inner personality that makes you, uniquely you, right? So I would not quell it. But at the same time, when you're learning, I don't think that is your focus. Your focus is, repeating, practicing, internalizing what you've learned. But at a certain point, let's say you get your Arangetram or beyond that is the most important part, we know that. So that is where this inner personality starts to come through. And I think it's the teacher's responsibility to also see that and nurture it in the student and not quell it, right? So, and when the student is displaying that, it's not about just nurturing it, it is about directing it also, to not let it fly wherever, right? So to let it, to direct it in such a way that it works in unison with the dance form.
For young dancers growing up here in the US, what are your suggestions for learning Bhavan, as this needs a lot of cultural immersion?
I don't think it should be too different. The geographical space you are from should not be too different. In fact, I feel children growing up here in the US are probably more in touch with through Bal Vihar and through mythology that their parents teach them, and through dance, through so many music everywhere, right? There is it's all the knowledge is coming through. It's not that it is a completely transposed situation. At home, again, they are in a dichotomy, these children growing up in a dichotomy. So how you separate that from this is a challenge. It is definitely a challenge, but that's a challenge you navigate with each child. And I think as long as the parents, the teacher and the child, a student, are engaged in this journey together, where there is seriousness when you learn. So it's not just about our dance forms. If you go to a ballet class or if you go to any class, the same discipline is expected everywhere. The same level of practice at home, the same, when you come to class, you have to, there is a certain behavior expected. And if you go to school, even in school, you're sitting at your desk, there is a certain behavior expected. You can't just do whatever, right? It's really the same thing in dance class. And I think when we start valuing dance class as equally important to any other kind of education that you are getting, our art forms, unfortunately, hopefully this pandemic, I feel, is hopefully going to reveal that the arts are really the most important, is what is keeping us all sane. So when you take it at that level of seriousness and you learn it as a system of education, you will hopefully be able to inculcate that sense of seriousness in the child and demand it every week.
And this
demand
is
it
from the
class.
parents
and the teachers.
And the teacher.
Yes.
So I, as a teacher, should probably tell my students, go read about it.
Yes.
And the parents should also involve their...
You should talk to the parent.
How can you use the intention of the dance piece as written by the original composer and add personal touch without changing the original meaning?
Are you embodying the meaning, or are you trying to understand and embody the complete arc of the composition? And I spoke about this in the talk as well, right? What the composer intended is one thing. We don't know that. He or she is not here for us to talk to them today. Sometimes they are contemporary composers, but with the ones that, with Padamsanja, many of them, we don't have those people to talk to. So we do need to, first of all, talk to a scholar. Very important. Your teacher is one source of information, but beyond that, I think there are scholars, I know there are scholars who are specifically engaged in studying these texts and the inner meaning and understanding it. So understanding from their point of view helps a certain way, right? Now, when the piece is taught to you, or if you are choreographing it and dancing it yourself, to me, it is sort of a marriage between the composer's intent and ideas and my life experiences and my ideas, right? So it's not that in any one piece I'm navigating directly in the center. No. There is the center where this side you have the composer's intent, and on this side you have me and my personality and my experiences and my all of it, training and everything, right? Now these meet somewhere, but in that meeting, one can, a few fingers can go here, and then at other times a few fingers can go here. So it is sort of a seamless, it's hard to pick apart and say this is me and this is the composer's intent, or this is that Nayika, and this is me, right? So that when you develop that level of understanding with the composition, that relationship between you and that Nayika becomes, and this is something I've talked about in other lectures before also. It is a symbiotic, it is a relationship between you and the Nayika, and so much so that where she begins and where you end, or where you begin and where she ends, is almost not seen, or you yourself don't know sometimes. And you are embodying her, but she is you as well. Yeah. She is you partly and you are her. So it's not something, it doesn't mean that you're taking away the composer's intent. It is that you are taking it and making it your own.
Probably in that way, your personality might come forward, and you probably, like how you said, you choose like very feminine oriented like compositions. Maybe, that's probably the way you will be drawn to such composition and understanding based on your personality.
That's at a later point, right?
Yeah, later point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know that these compositions may challenge you, but you could do it as a challenge to see whether it fits you or not.
Correct. Oh yeah. When you learn, just because I'm sort of drawn to the feminine, strong feminine. When I was learning, I learned everything and all of it, right? Whatever was taught by the teacher is what you learn. At that point, I didn't even know any better, right? So even if I knew better, there was a time when we wouldn't even talk to our teachers. We wouldn't be like literally, like that guy in Smarsumar. So, or my teacher and we would not sit on the same sofa. If he or she, Kalani Mami, sat on the chair, I would sit on the ground. That is the level of respect. Now, when I say respect, it is not just about the way you sit or the questions you ask, right? It is coming from a very internal space. And it's coming from a space where you are giving credence to this person's number of years with, engaging with the art form. And it is not to say that as a student you will not get there. But in the meantime, this person was born before you, they were engaged in the arts before you, and they therefore have this level of engagement with it. I have had more engagement with the art than Janani, right? So it's the same, and my teacher, that's how it is passed down. So it is the respect we have for that level of engagement that person has had with the art form. And so, therefore, we do what they ask us to do, willingly and happily, and know that the teacher often knows that this is what you need to go through that journey to get to the point where you can start questioning and finding your path or who you are or what you're drawn towards.
Okay. Once again, thank you, Vidhya, so much for answering all our questions as well from parents of Nrityakalya Dance Academy and Nrityakalya Dance Company, students of Nrityakalya, and thank you for also bringing your student Kirti. And all I have is only thanks. Thank you.
And that's a beautiful phrase which encompasses all. Thank you for inviting me.
That was a wonderful, enriching lecture demonstration by Smt Vidhya Subramanian. Now on to the second part of today's event, Sadhaana Part 2 by students of Nrityakalya Dance Company. Let's watch.
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा विनायक मुदाकरात् मोदकं सदा विमुक्तिसाधकं कदादरावचं सतं विलासिलोकरक्षकम् अनायकैकनायकं विनाशिते भदैत्यकं नताशुभाशुनाशकं नमाम्यहं विनायकम् न वेदरागिरीकरम् दैत्यकुञ्जरं दरेतरोदरं वरं वरे भवत्रमक्षरं कृपाकरं क्षमाकरं मुदाकरं यशस्करं मानस्करं नमस्कृता नमस्करोमि भास्वरम् अकिञ्चनातिमार्जनं चिरन्तनोक्तिभाजनं पुरारि पूर्वनन्दनं सुरारि गर्वचरणं प्रपञ्चनाशभीषणं धनञ्जयादिभूषणम् अबोलदानवारणं भजे पुराणवारणम् नितान्तकान्तिगन्तकान्तमन्तकान्तकात्मजम् अचिन्त्यरूपमन्तकेणमन्तराय चिन्तनं निरन्तरे निरन्तरं वसन्तमेव योगिनागमेकदन्तमेव तं विचिन्तयामि सन्ततं विचिन्तयामि सन्ततं विनायकम्
ससनि पप्प मगरि सरि सा ससनि पप्प मगरि सरि सा समगमपनि सनि पप्प मगमपनि ससनि पप्प मगरि सरि सा समगमपनि सनि पप्प मगमपनि ससनि पप्प मगरि सरि सा समगमपनि सनि पप्प ma pa ni sa ni pa pa ma ga ma pa ni sa sa ni pa pa ma ga ri sa ni sa ma ga ma pa ni sa ni pa pa ma ga ma pa ni sa sa ni pa pa ma ga ri sa ni sa ma ga ma pa ni sa ni pa pa ma ga ma pa sa sa ni pa pa ma ga ri sa ni sa.
மயில் வாகன வள்ளி மனமோகன 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 மயில் வாகன வள்ளி சரவண பவ வரம் அருள்வாய் மாமயில் வாகனவள் மனமோகன சரவண பவ வரம் அருள்வாய் மாமயில் வாகனவள் மனமோகன கையிலாய முதல் மாலைகளெல்லாம் கரடித்து விளையாடும் பன்னிரு கையா முருகையா கையிலாய
ಚೈತೇರಾಯಿ ಮರುಬಾರಿಕಿ ತಾಳಗಲೇರ ಆಯಿರ ಮರುಬಾರಿಕಿ ತಾಳಗಲೇರ ಆಯರ ರಾರ ಮಾರಜನಕ ಸುಕುಮಾರ ಸುಂದರ 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 ಗಿರಾರ ಚೈತೇರಾಯಿ ಮರುಬಾರಿಕಿ ತಾಳಗಲೇರ ಆಗೇರ ರಾರ ವಲಚಿ ನಿನ್ನು ಪಿಲಚಿನ ನನ್ನು ವಲಚಿ ನಿನ್ನು ಪಿಲಚಿನ ನನ್ನು సల్లాదించి మరి నన్నుల్లాసించావు సల్లాదించి మరి నన్నుల్లాసించావు వలచి నిన్ను పిలచిన నన్ను సల్లాదించి మరి నన్నుల్లాసించావు ఏ రార చైతేరాయి మరుబారికి ఘాళగలేర ఆగిర రార సరసూడని చాలా కోరినార సరసూడని చాలా కోరినార వీరాన నన్ను కౌగలించురావదపూర వీరాన నన్ను కౌగలించురావదపూర సరసూడని చాలా కోరినార వీరాన నన్ను కౌగలించురావదపూర గిరా రార చైతేరాయి మరుబారికి ఘాళగలేర ఆయర రార పరమదయాగరుడైన శ్రీధర్మపురాదీప శ్రీ వెంకటేశాచరణు పరమదయాగరుడైన శ్రీధర్మపురాదీప శ్రీ వెంకటేశాచరణు ఎరారా చైతేరాయి మరుబారికి ఘాళగలేరా ఆయర రార చైతేరాయి మరుబారికి ఘాళగలేరా
Samyukta Hastas or double hand gestures. Namaste. With acceptance, let's come together and dance. Sometimes we dance with crossed hands. Sometimes we dance with hanging hands. And sometimes we dance holding flowers. Lord Shiva dances in the company of the great, and he is often seen in the form of Shivalinga, and he is worshipped by all his devotees. Under a tree there was a demon who was slayed by Lord Mahavishnu, who holds the conch and the discus. From the box I take the strings to make friendship bracelets. Lord Mahavishnu took the incarnations of Matsya, the fish, Kurma, tortoise, Varaha, boar, and he flies on the mighty eagle Garuda. Lord Shiva dances with twin snakes and other serpents around his body. Lord Mahavishnu is seen lying on the cot on the milky ocean. Birds chirp when they are happy, while we dance when we are happy.
மண்ணில் பேதமும் மாசும் நீங்கிட மண்ணில் பேதமும் மாசும் நீங்கிட வன்மை உண்மை உரிமை ஓங்கிட வன்மை உண்மை உரிமை ஓங்கிட அன்பே சிவம் எனும் அருந்தமிழ் ஞானம் அன்பே சிவமெனும் அருந்தமிழ் ஞானம் அகில உலகம் அரவணைத்தல்வே அகில உலகம் அரவணைத்தல் வேண்டும் அகில உலகம் அரவணைத்தல் வேண்டும்
With this, we conclude our 10th anniversary celebrations. I thank everybody who watched us on this digital platform. And we also would like to thank everyone who supported and encouraged us over the past 10 years. And we look forward to the same in our future endeavors. Namaskaram.